Dr. Grace, thank you for joining us today. You've devoted some time to considering how AI may change the way we think about insurance regulation, and I'd like to explore that with you in the moments ahead. But first, for the benefit of those who may be unfamiliar with AI or artificial intelligence, could you help us understand what that term means and perhaps distinguish that from the notion of machine learning?
AI is like the big surrounding tent for a bunch of things: machine learning, neural networks, expert systems, deep learning. Those are all some faction or part of an AI. And the example I like to give is that, you know, the first ones, the very simple ones, let's say an expert system, well, that people thought that was AI. Then something new comes along, they think that's AI. And then maybe something even newer, like this large language models, that's AI. And now, you know, philosophers are asking, well, what does it mean to be artificially intelligent? So right now we have a bunch of technologies that have various levels of facility that we can use and rely on, and that's what AI is. But it's not the end. You know, we don't have an upper definition unless I can replicate, you know, you as another artificial entity that can be you, and I would never know the difference. So that would be like the end goal, I guess.
AI has been making headlines in recent months, but it's not a new concept as I understand it. Can you provide a brief overview of the history of artificial intelligence and perhaps chat a bit about its evolution?
It's actually quite fascinating, because if people have gone back to like Greek philosophers and Greek engineers, who one gentleman created a time clock using water, and it was the most accurate timepiece that had ever been created. And they said that's the first artificial intelligence technology. I would say it's just a machine. But try to think about the difference between a machine and something that we think of as intelligent. But over time, like the next big innovation might have come in the 40s. Herb Simon, who won a Nobel Prize in economics, he and some colleagues developed a logic machine that could actually do mathematical proofs better than the people who wrote the problem and solved it. So when I first heard about that, I said, oh, that is really AI. But it's really a mechanical process. You know, if this happens, then this happens. If that doesn't happen, they go down to the next stage. But it was elegant, and it was so surprising. It created a tremendous amount of interest in AI back in the early 50s. No fruition. It sort of was like everyone was excited about it, but we just didn't have enough really computing power to take it to the next level. In the 60s and 70s, we've had other innovations. One of which is I think is quite fascinating. It's a software program called ELIZA, and it's really a therapist speaking. You'd say, I'm here to see you today. What's your problem? Oh, I'm not feeling good. Well, tell me more about that. It's just sort of a bunch of prompts and some sort of random responses that made people at the beginning say, this is an interesting technology. We can really make money on this. Turns out, you know, it only had like 58 different answers, and it sort of randomly went through them, and they didn't really help. We had other inventions, one of which was like a IBM computer. I think it was Big Blue that beat chess champion, and that was an interesting problem in the sense that, you know, that chess problem is a finite problem. There's only so many chess moves, so many chess games in the world, but that computer program could go through everyone and solve them quicker than a chess master could. About that same time, listening, computers could listen to you, and they could hear you. Dragon Software developed dictation software, and Microsoft now owns it, but it's built in so many things. We don't think of that as AI in a way, but it hears what you want, fixes it, and spits it out in a way that looks like something you said. Later, we had these things called expert systems, which people really relied upon. They thought it was the next level of AI. It was, I don't know, a bunch of if-then statements. You know, if this happens, then we do this. If this happens, then do this. But it was designed by experts, so it was actually better than just, it gave you information about how you could do things if you weren't an expert. At the same time, we also developed these things called neural networks. Now, neural networks are the big thing right now, but back then, we just didn't have data for them to fill them in. Today, we have lots more data. Amazon can use all their information to help predict what you're going to buy or not buy. But back in the old days, we didn't have that deep, repeated interactions that we could use to inform these neural networks. But that's all well and good, but it wasn't until like the last year or so that ChatGPT sort of hit the world scene. But it had been around for a couple of years in earlier versions. But this is a large language model that you can actually ask questions and get relatively sophisticated answers. Sometimes the answers are just the same kind of thing you might write for an SAT 5 essay prompt. You might get something like that. You won't get it to make a decision for you yet. The bottom line conclusion will often be, well, everyone's mileage may vary. Not very helpful if you want to make a decision, but it's there, and the fact that it's grammatically correct, it knows what you're talking about, and gives you an answer is, to many people, quite fascinating, and it can only get better than that.
Shifting gears a bit, we'd appreciate your insights, Dr. Grace, into AI and insurance, specifically the promise of AI for insurers, and in addition, your thoughts on artificial intelligence as a tool for insurance regulators.
Think of a Venn diagram with AI regulation as one circle, insurance regulation as another circle, and the third circle being insurers. Now, if we start with insurers, they have all of this data on their customers, and they can use other customers' information to help inform them about making a decision about you, because that's really how the law of large numbers works and insurance risk pooling works. Well, they can take that to a different level now. They just have so much more information. They can offer you more tailored policies. They can give you better discounts. Especially in a competitive market, they're going to be able to do that much easier. They'll be able to use these expert systems basically to make the consumer transaction quicker, and on the other side, the claims can be also satisfied quicker. You already see the app on the phone, take a picture, get a check. Well, they do that because they have some expert systems and some recognition already built into what they're doing, that they can do that for many claims. So that's like that's a promise of it. Now, insurance regulators, well, they have to worry about, are the prices being charged fair? Are the agents being trained properly? They're going to have to use AI to help them with that. And on top of that, there's capital models, solvency models. These are sophisticated financial models for companies, and most regulatory staff don't have PhDs in finance to sort of assess these models. AI will be able to help them with that too. So they'll probably get advice from other states and the NAIC how to develop this properly, but that's a promise for better regulation, being able to see problems way before they actually occur, and that's better than seeing shutting down a company that fails quickly and efficiently. That's nice, but seeing one in trouble way before it's in trouble and fixing it or giving it nudges, I think, is the right way to think about it. To get it better is a good thing. Then on top of that, we have AI regulation, which will cause lots of compliance costs for insurance companies. To sort of make sure they're doing it according to whatever federal or international standards we're having for that. And the insurance regulators are going to have to be part and parcel of that, because they're going to have to be sort of auditing this and assessing this too. So these things are AI regulation, insurance regulation, and the business of insurance are really tied tightly together. And if you think about it, that the insurance regulator has to basically use AI to be a good regulator, because the insurance industry is using AI. So it's like they're joined at the hip on this.
We've talked about the promise of AI. On the other side of the coin, what, in your view, are some of the challenges that we'll need to address?
If we use sort of the internet as kind of an example, and we go back and look at all the new technologies that sprung up overnight to solve this problem, and it was free. I don't know if you remember that part, but hey, we can do this, and it's free. Well, it's not free, but it caused so much froth and uncertainty in a good way, because people say, look at all the products we have. I think we're on the verge of that with AI too. I mean, ChatGPT and then the Google version is called Bard. They are just so wonderful in so many respects, and compared, as being able to talk. You can talk to it and have a conversation with it that to an outsider looks like a real conversation. Even they didn't know it was a computer. That is just the tip of the iceberg. I don't even know where to go with it, but there's just so much more that can be helpful. Right now, like for example, many companies are putting ChatGPT or large language models into their software. Grammarly is an example. I am a personal user of Grammarly, and they're now advertising that they use it. Other writing services are putting, one's called Text GPT for other writing service. They're using these and they're developing, and art, maybe design, all these areas that we have no idea where it's going to actually end up, but people's imaginations will push us in that direction. So the answer is I don't know, but I just liken it back to the internet craze and just all the things that we saw. Who would have thought that there'd be free streaming music, And so whatever the equivalent of that is in the future, that'll be there.
Dr. Grace, do you believe there are opportunities to leverage learnings from the EU and other jurisdictions who perhaps are out in front of us with respect to AI and its use?
States and governments are actually passing laws about AI right now. Most of them are, let's say you have to say you can't discriminate in insurance pricing, and you can't use machines, machine learning or anything that would possibly do that. So those are to me baby laws. The big philosophical laws, I don't know where we are on that. Right now, like the head of OpenAI is trying to get people together to think about what should AI regulation look like, and that will have an effect on how individual countries do that. One thing I can point to is that the FSA of the United Kingdom, Financial Services Authority, came out with that. We want to use AI to make our companies healthier and our customers happier and our market grow. So I think that should be the mission statement of all regulators. But AI is just one more tool in their box of tools to do that. So I don't know if one country's got a better rule on this yet or not. So again, I think we're right to find out. If we just wait a little longer, we might find out.
Dr. Grace, where can lawmakers and regulators who'd like to learn more about AI turn for information? Do you have suggestions?
Stanford has an AI lab, and they have white papers, and they have really interesting things. So some of it's philosophical, like what is AI really, and how do we use AI, and what would operationalizing AI mean for a particular goal. And MIT has a similar lab, but they also have a really fascinating magazine that is almost all AI right now, and it has nothing. Its mission is technology. It's called the MIT Technology Review, but I'd say a lot of the articles are about that. So if you want just sort of like, I would call it the Scientific American version of what's going on, and that means that someone with a that's interested and is willing to read it can get through it and know all the words and can learn something from it. It's not written for PhDs talking to other PhDs. It's basically talking to the world. I think that would be a very good place to start. Other white papers, like all the big consulting groups have stuff, but they're trying to sell something, but you can learn something from what they're talking about because they're surveying people, and so I think that's a really interesting thing. What are people thinking about this? And that's almost important as what is actually being done. So I would use those three outlets.
Dr. Grace, thank you for being with us today.